Okay, we are live.
Good morning.
Good morning. Let's get a couple minutes here, wait for some people to get on.
Checking for questions.
Okay, we'll start a little bit here. As I normally do, I go on a little bit of a rant ahead of time, and so it's not that bad. Hey, Chardon.
What are you ranting about?
It's not really ranting. It's
Aspen, I told you this is the best I could do. My hair is out of control this morning. So,
yeah.
You know.
Yes. What's my favorite part about being married?
Aspen,
we have to censor that. No.
Really, Aspen?
I know. Okay.
Anyone who needs counseling, go to Aspen. She's fantastic.
She is awesome. She's in Colorado, but she's actually global.
Yeah.
So
she's global. She's online.
Favorite part about being married for me is really the companionship. Honestly, she balances me out big time. I'm pretty convinced that if it wasn't for her, I'd be dead. And so she definitely keeps me alive. But there's this side of her that I don't want to put her up on a pedestal, but I do want to put her up there because it's really, when it comes down to it, there's this side of her that brings me peace and comfort. And it's a lot like what the Holy Spirit does. She's definitely the Holy Spirit in our relationship from the standpoint. She's not God, obviously, but man, when life gets challenging, situations get hard, she's just a very level, peaceful, loving person. She sees the best in people. And I love that about her, just being together. Honestly, one of my favorite things, we were talking about that this morning, is we literally now, through a lot of trial, a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, we now can kind of travel when we want. And we were talking about, some of the places we've been able to go. And I just love being around her. She's my best friend. So I would say and she's smoking hot. So, that's a whole nother thing. So.
Oh, I didn't know we were doing essay answers.
Yeah, it was an essay answer. Go ahead. Okay. Your turn now.
Thanks.
Really? You want to see? Let's see how short your answer is. Other than he looks good in short shorts. No. So, okay.
Rachel just heard that. She just came out of her room, and she's probably Aspen. She probably needs counseling from you now.
Yes. We're keeping you in business. Go ahead.
I was just going to say a simple answer that he's just my best friend, even though we're very opposite in so many ways.
We are.
And we do not always agree on things.
That's only when you're wrong. I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. You can go ahead.
Okay. I lost my train of thought now.
Oh, how I'm your best friend and you look up to me and you just like.
We're not doing this.
Okay, go ahead. Go.
Anyway, he's my best friend, even though he knows exactly how to push my buttons. Not that way.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
Wow.
This
might be a really short live today.
I had a cup of coffee this morning and it was pretty strong, so I'm a little wired.
Yeah. This is my second.
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay. So what's your favorite part about being married to me?
I love not how you interrupt me.
Sorry.
Wow, there's all kinds of distractions this morning.
Yeah.
Also,
I'm going to shut that door.
The way that he cares for people and takes care of people and loves to financially fund things of the kingdom and works so hard, not really with that goal in mind for the most part. Just to be able to provide finances to lots of different ministries and people and just bless people. Mm-hmm. So we should probably move on to another.
Yeah, that's actually,
question.
But that's a mutual thing. She's always been a stay-at-home mom. And, we've done very well in business. And I say we, because the reality is if it wasn't for her, there's no way. And this is important. I think, what's the favorite part about being married? That's a great question. But I've heard people say at times, well, she's always been a stay-at-home mom. What part of her success is she? And I'm like, it's a huge part. She's been able to be home with the kids the entire time, ever since literally they're born. I think we tried a short time after Ariel, right? Mm-hmm. Where you tried to go back to work. And we just knew that wasn't it. That wasn't the end goal. Her goal was to be with the kids. And I always knew, no matter how many hours I was working, that the family was always being loved on, taken care of. It was a peaceful environment, not always peaceful, but it was a peaceful environment. There was obviously things we ran into where we've thought over the years, man, I wish we would have parented a little different. I wish we would have done a couple things a little different. Nobody's perfect. I have the saying that I've come up with in the past few months, past year, I can't remember. I'll just say the other day. The other day to me is anything yesterday or the past 15 years. So I have a saying I came up with the other day is just strive for perfection, settle for excellence. And I think literally she's
that must have been the other day, because I've never heard you say that.
No, I do say that. Ask my team. I know that. But yeah, strive for perfection, settle for excellence, because there's no way we're ever going to be perfect, but it's something that we strive to be perfect. We just need to know that everything we've done in excellence. And I'll tell you what, she has raised our kids in excellence. There's no doubt about it. They're who they are because of that. And so, Justin. Hey, Justin. What would have you wished you would have known about being a husband and a father in your early 20s? Okay? Well, Justin, I actually got married at 19. So,
and he was a father by 20.
Yes, so. I was a father 21, right? Was it 20 or 21? But I think 21, because Ariel's in November. We got married in December. But yeah, my birthday's in April. 21. Yeah, 2021. But yeah, there's a lot of things. You're never ready to have kids. I can tell you that, financially or mentally, because you don't know what you don't know. And I think it's very important to get around people that have that wisdom. Like Leilani is very good right now at sharing with young mothers, young parents about, hey, this is normal, or this is how to avoid this, or hey, you should probably help your child do this to help them sleep better. There's a lot of things. We didn't really have that when we had younger kids. We didn't have a lot of people with advice, especially when we were talking about multiple kids. So there's a lot of just not knowing. But I'll tell you, if you have people you admire and respect in your life, from parenting aspect or a marriage aspect, don't be afraid to go and ask for advice, and be open to it as well. Be willing to listen to what they have to say. So absolutely, I think that's a great question, Justin. It's, you don't know what you don't know. What would you like to add to that?
I do think that sometimes people are more prepared than others for parenthood. I think obviously you want to try to be as ready as you can in all areas, but they always surprise you no matter what. So even when you are well prepared, there's always going to be challenges, and that's part of the ride. That's part of the adventure of it, and the experience that you gain.
A lot of times you can look back at what you've done. I think the greatest reflection of parenting is how you see your kids currently living. And a lot of that's not realized till they're actually adults and they make their own decisions, or even their early to latter teens. You start to see them make these decisions. But no matter how hard you try, the kids still can make their own decisions. They still have their own free will. But watching your children grow and start to make their decisions, it's pretty amazing. As adults, now we're all 4 of our kids are adults, and watching some of the decisions they make, you can sit there like, wow, that was a really smart move. That was really wise. And I'll tell you what, even as
you can't take credit for all of it, though.
No, you can't, because they still have to make their decision. But I love that they'll reach out to Leilani for some question or me for some question. Why? Because they still value us as not just parents, but as a place of a resource in essence. So yeah, knowing just basically what to know early on, soak in wisdom and knowledge from whoever you can. Be careful who you go to. We've told our kids for years, never get advice from someone that you don't admire or respect where they are at that time, where you want to be. Don't go and find someone who's in a massive financial mess and ask them financial advice. Don't ask someone who's going through extreme marital problems. Ask them, hey, how do you make a marriage work? I had a client one time, he goes, hey, have you read my marriage book? And I'm like, no, I haven't. And he goes and hands it to me. I said, but you said you're single. And he goes, well, yeah, that didn't work out. I'm like, why do I want to read your marriage book when it didn't work out? I mean, he wrote that while they were in the middle of the marriage, and then it didn't work out. So clearly something went wrong there. Aspen, do you share any hobbies? Oh, yes. I love sewing. I'm a great sewer. I sew all the time. No. Okay, I don't sew. I can sew. You remember that quilting machine your mom had where I did the little... I spelled out your name with that quilting machine. So traveling, absolutely traveling. Yep.
Which this mug this morning is making me reminiscent to traveling.
I'm telling you, as soon as things get somewhat back to normal.
How do you support the hobby even if you don't like it?
There's no hobbies you have that I don't like. I'm fully supportive. What's a hobby you have that you don't like?
I didn't say there was.
No, I know that. I can't think of one.
Well, there's certainly hobbies, like he likes to hunt. That's fine with me, but we all know I'm not doing that. No. It's just not.
Just see, to my wife, getting an animal is not going to, we watch those extreme survival shows, like extreme.
You watch the extreme survival shows.
No, like the Life Below Zero and things like that where they're out.
Yes. And I praise Jesus every day that God bless him if that's people want to live.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful. That's great for them. But
Subsistence lifestyle is not my wife. She's not going to be gutting animals. She's not going to be out there hunting. No, it's not her. So,
me, but if other people want it, go for it.
Well, and you're not even really a big fan. There's some wild game that she likes, but she doesn't really care for the flavor a lot of times. So I can't even say she supports it by eating what I catch. But I will tell you, she is very supportive of me getting out and doing that.
Sure.
She actually, it's her that actually allows me to do that, because sometimes I'm like, no, I'm too busy, too many things going on. She goes, you need to go. You need to get out. You need to have that time alone or a time away. So I do appreciate that. Yeah, she does. But I appreciate it. So I don't know, honestly, how you could answer that question. How do you support a hobby if you don't like it? The only thing I could think where that would really come into play is if it costs a lot of money, or time that you don't have. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. So something's very expensive and you're going, hey, we just can't afford that. That's not in the budget.
Or hey, I'd like to see you because.
Yeah, for whatever. I mean, I know there's I've had some conversation with guys where their hobby takes them away for a long time. I'm like, oh, wait a second. Your hobby outweighs your relationship with your wife. That doesn't even make sense. Your relationship with your spouse should be first. Your hobby should never come before your relationship with your spouse. So if your spouse comes to you, gentlemen, and your wife says, hey, I really miss you. I would appreciate more time with you. Don't get all butthurt and upset. Respect the fact that she actually wants to be around you. That's a good thing. Now, if she goes, hey, hon, I really appreciate more time with you, and here's the honey-do list. Well, there's a side to that too. You do need to make sure you're taking care of your household. but make sure you're spending time together, and don't get upset because your wife wants to spend more time with you. And I know I'm guilty of that at times, especially when I'm trying to work and I feel like I have this deadline. And Leilani goes, I just miss you. I just want to be with you. And I'm going, I can't get upset at that. That's incredible. So, and Rachel, yeah, I know mom doesn't scrapbook. I get that. And yes, I did a scrapbook project. And by the way, it was the best, I think, gift that you've received, do you think?
Yes.
Yeah, scrapbook. Basically, long story short, we're 20th anniversary. I went back to when we were dating, created a scrapbook page for every year we were married, and gave it to her 22, 23 days before our anniversary. And the only downside to that is I now have to do that for the rest of my life.
He gets to.
I get to. That's
it's
true.
Literally the only thing I care about as far as gifts from him for our anniversary.
Yes. So now
it's sweet and special.
Thank you.
And thoughtful.
I appreciate that. It's was one of those things that the Lord gave me the idea, because just buying something often doesn't have a lot of thought to it. You just buy it. You can, of course, put a lot of thought to it. But the Lord said, you need to make something for her that would really touch her. And so that's how that happened. Let's see. And if you come over sometime, we will show you the scrapbooks. What changed or really impacted your relationship with money?
I think it was one time we had a revelation that no job or career or inheritance was going to be our source. Obviously, you have to have a job to acquire money. You can't just sit around and wait for it to come in the mail. Although God's provided that for people at times, but you typically have to have done something for that to earn that money. And I think when we realized years and years ago that he is our source, no matter what, that was a complete mind shift with finances.
I agree. I remember that specifically because I'm like, oh, what about this? What about where if we get money here or there? It doesn't matter. God's our source. And another revelation for me was realizing that none of it's mine in the first place. When I look at it, God allows me to have this money. And if you think he doesn't, remember, everything we have, everything we are is based off of who he is. The air we breathe exists because he allows it to be there. He created it. So whatever we have, our health, our wealth, and when I say wealth, I always refer to the mindset. It has nothing to do with the money. I can tell you, I've met people far more wealthy than me that have a lot less money because they have this heart that is just far beyond mine. And I'm going, that is a wealthy person. You can see people that have no money whatsoever, but they actually are very wealthy. And so it's all about mindset, just as the same as poverty. Poverty is all a mindset. It has nothing to do with your money at all. It's who you are and what you allow to go in you. And so now when we get money, the first thing we're always asking is this even ours? So if we have a large sum of money coming in or a small sum of money, we're just like, Lord, is this even ours? Are we supposed to give this away? Because the way I look at it now is God gives me an allowance. My allowance is what I'm allowed to keep. It's all his in the first place. So what allowance does he allow me to keep? And we even talk about things we want to buy, that if it's a large purchase, I ask 3 people. I have 2 friends, and then of course Leilani, that I ask when it comes to large purchase. And if one of the 3, even one, say, hey, I don't think that's a good idea, I wouldn't buy it. Now, if the 2, my friends, say go ahead, but my wife says, hey, I don't think that's a good idea, I'm not buying it. She overrules everything when it comes to the final decision, because we have to agree on any purchases. And we used to be, we had any. Yeah, I'm sorry, certain dollar amounts, any larger purchases. And when we were struggling big time, when we were struggling, we used to even ask for $40. Like if we spent $40, we'd talk about it. Now it's like, there's a lot of things. How can I see this charge at Marshalls or whatever.
Oh,
And
Marshalls,
Ross,
I missed you.
yeah. And I'm like, holy cow, you just spent a lot. And then she comes back with bags of baby clothes. And I'm like, well, there you go. As you know, we don't have any babies or grandbabies, so I know she's giving that away. So now we don't even really deal with that. And honestly, when you look at it, if you truly treat your money as God is the source and you have an allowance, you don't create ownership or get ownership of all the money you take in because it's not yours. Therefore, when it comes time for money to be given away, you're going, well, it wasn't mine in the first place. So it allows that heart of generosity to come in no matter what. Remember, this is not based off of dollar amounts. This is the wealth mindset, the heart. I'm actually writing a book right now called Residue Living, and it's from economics to Godonomics. And I'm going to go through the whole process of that. So Travis, I'll actually give you a copy when I actually get that, when that book actually comes out. Rachie, what question do you get asked most about in your marriage? That's a good question. I guess
Probably money.
Money, yeah. Mine, I get a lot when people find out how young I was when I got married. They say, do you regret getting married that young? And absolutely not.
Not that it's for everyone.
No, I agreed. But man, for me, I knew from my freshman year I was going to be married right out of high school. I just knew that. I don't know why. I just was groomed for that. I really, and the funny story is, this is actually kind of funny. So Leilani and I had not met yet, but she actually had this girl in her youth group that she was kind of, this girl looked up to her and they were talking about how there's this boy at high school that wants to carry her books and wants to walk her to the locker. And Leilani's like,
leave flowers in the locker.
Leave flowers in the locker.
She was complaining. And I was like, what are you complaining about? Well,
long story short, we end up becoming good friends. Leilani and I, that boy that girl was complaining about was me. So Leilani got the guy that the girl was complaining about, which was just so funny to me. But now, yes, I leave flowers not in her locker in her house, and in her room. He
does carry things for me.
I do.
He carries my Vera Bradley monogrammed travel bag when we're going through airports. Kind of a big deal.
That is true. Because, I mean, why? We get to be the pack mules. I'm fine being the pack mule. So, Rachel, how didn't you know that? Hey, kiddo, there's a lot of things you may not know. Just because she birthed you.
Yeah.
So I did not
the
birth her.
Let's make that clear.
Yes,
I'm the one that was pregnant, not me.
Yes. No, that's just a story. Oh, we have lots of really cool little stories like that. And obviously not all of them are great, like known all the time, but sometimes when someone asks a question,
sometimes we forget.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been a while.
There are so many things. I'll tell you what, Zach loves doing Legos, and I do too. But one of the things I find is Legos, or a puzzle for that matter. A lot of times God gives you these pieces of puzzle throughout your life, and you're looking at these pieces of the puzzle and you're going, that doesn't look like anything. That little piece of puzzle doesn't look like anything. But as you go through life and you start to put those little pieces together and you look, well, that one connects with that and that one connects with that. And then you get towards the middle part of your life and you're going, I start to see the picture coming together. I start to see this beautiful picture coming together. That little piece of puzzle that looked kind of insignificant in your life actually ended up being a critical part of that puzzle, tying it together to see this beautiful picture. And a lot of times we don't look at the little piece and we look at it like less because it didn't mean anything. But without that beautiful picture wouldn't come together. And there's so many times in our lives where it seems kind of boring. It seems kind of like, that doesn't seem like a big deal. You got to realize it's all part of the puzzle. It's all part of the critical big picture. And without that little piece, and we have stories that literally throughout the years may not seem like something huge, that now it's creating this beautiful picture. Mm-hmm. And the thing is the beauty of when you live with the Holy Spirit in you, your puzzle has no borders. Your puzzle can go as big as you allow God to make it.
Yeah.
So you don't think, a lot of times we look at life and we got to have this little puzzle with our little borders and we're looking for the edges. And that's not how God created us. God created us to live a life with no borders on our puzzle. We just keep putting the pieces together. And sometimes we try and hammer them in and things get messed up, and God can fix that. But some of the stories we have, I'm telling you, it's amazing what the little picture's looking like. And some of them look messed up. Some of those little pieces get tarnished along the way because of some challenges in life, but God turns them beautiful and turns them into a big picture. Now, what is the difference between being in love and loving your spouse? Holy cow, Aspen, that's a deep one right there. I remember a time, Ariel, I think it was after you had Ariel, where you said you didn't feel like, how did you word that?
It was, in hindsight, it was probably like a postpartum hormonal thing going on. But of course, back then, wow, that's really dating me. But at that time, I at least didn't know anything about it. And I always knew that I loved him, but I didn't feel in love, if that makes sense. I know it sounds really harsh. And I know it.
I've
you might cry right now.
It was a long time ago.
But I knew that I absolutely loved him. I just was having a hard time with the feeling part. I was probably exhausted. Again, hormones, this and that. And it was for a short season. But I knew that I had obviously made a covenant, wasn't going anywhere, wasn't doing anything wrong, wasn't trying to talk to anybody else or anything like that. But we walked it out, and I just continued to choose to love. And I just continued to pray and be like, Lord, I need you to fix whatever this is going on in me, because I don't know what else to do. And sure enough, it was short-lived.
It was a challenge. I mean, I remember when she told me that, it crushed me. People can joke and tease me all the time, and I don't put much weight on that. But if she says something like that, I can turn into a puddle real quick, because to me, her words mean a lot. Her feelings mean a lot. And like I said, I'm not saying I've always been the best at expressing that. And
Rachel's learning all kinds of stuff today.
But I'm not always the best at expressing that, but her words carry a lot of weight.
And I didn't tell him to crush him, but no. I needed my best friend to pray for me and just kind of know like what I was going through, because I didn't really have, he needed to know. Because I did feel like it was, in a sense, it could have been an opportunity for an attack on our marriage, which of course the enemy always wants to attack. So I think to be more direct to answering, loving your spouse is just loving them through the things of life, the things that happen along the way. And sometimes it's poor choices, and sometimes it's things that just happen no matter what.
And I'll tell you, being in love, and this is going to be a little direct. So being in love is who we actually should be because of who's in us. We have Christ in us, which is love. So therefore we should always be in love. And I'm speaking to myself right now, because there's a lot of challenging situations or challenging people in life where being in love is kind of hard to do. You look at them or they say something, I'm not in love right now. I feel like I'm going out of the zone right there. But loving someone is where you're doing something that's selfless. You're trying to show them that they matter, that they're important. In reality, even people we don't see value in because of our own challenges, our own dodo moments, the reality is if Christ died for them, they obviously are of value. And I do this little example where I'll take $100 bill and I'll hold up $100 bill and I'll hold up a $1 bill. And I'll say, which one of these are more valuable? And of course, everybody's like, oh, the $100 bill. And I'm like, okay. So I crumble it up. I take this $100 bill and I crumble it up. and I crush it, and then I pull it back open. Now it's all wrinkled. It has marks on it. And I hold it up to a $1 bill and I say, which one's more valuable? Well, people are still saying the $100 bill.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll ask the question, which one costs more? Oh, the $100. No, they each cost the same.
Mm-hmm.
The $1 bill, the $100 bill, they both cost the same to make.
Mm-hmm.
Which one has more value? Well, man placed the value on the $100 bill, not the actual cost. Well, Christ died for us. It costs the same for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
But Christ doesn't put a value on us as far as he's more valuable, she's more valuable. We're all valuable to him because of what it cost for us. He gave up his son for us. So the cost was the same. So therefore, the love, in my opinion, loving someone is based off of what you believe how valuable do you think they are? So that's a great question. It's really deep, and you can see because it's taken us a little bit of time to answer that, because that's a really deep question. Mm-hmm. And of course, Aspen, if you want to reach out to Leilani, go for it. Hey, Missy. Hi, Nessa. Nessa, I never called you Nessa. It's Vanessa. So Andrew, hey, what's up? How important do you think it is for the church to begin to rise up and begin to take back the ground in the field that God has called them to? Okay, so
I don't know that isn't happening.
Yeah, I think it totally is. I would agree with that.
I think it depends where you are, and maybe.
Yeah, well, see,
the people you're around, maybe the church, I have no idea.
Yeah, there's a lot of people saying the church is receding. There's so many pastors a day that are going away and leaving the ministry. Yeah, that may be true. That may be true in maybe Europe, possibly not anymore, because now I've heard there's actually kind of a revival starting in Europe where some of these old churches are now being filled. And in the United States, there's church plants everywhere. Yeah. So to say there's more people leaving than coming into, I don't agree with that. There's also in the underground church in Iran and China, we know missionaries that are there that it's breaking out like crazy. So I believe we're actually not only taking ground, we are conquering lands. We're advancing without any doubt whatsoever. I believe we're ripe for revival. And, you know, when you look at what's going on in the world, I think we are absolutely taking ground. And reality is there's no ground that's not God's in the first place. You know, once Jesus came down, it says he took the keys from death. And now I believe that authority actually was taken when Jesus went down and he grabbed those keys. He gave the authority back to us because once again, if the Holy Spirit's in us, it says wherever we put our feet down, we possess the land. That is ours. So therefore, if Christ is in us, that means nothing whatsoever belongs to the enemy. He owns nothing. There's no way he can't, and he doesn't get joy out of messing with people. He has no joy. He's a little worm. He's worthless. He's not valuable because he went against God, and not to like act in pride or anything, because it says he has power over us if we allow it. But Christ in us, we can overcome that. So I think we're absolutely possessing and taking land. Now, as far as what God's called you to do, that book that I wrote called Striving for the Bottom is all about godly mentorship. How do you get people to understand who they are and what their purpose is? And don't go to Amazon and order that direct from our website and strivingforthebottom.com. And the reason why is because Amazon just takes every little dime out of everything. And so, once again, I'm not trying to make money off this. Is just something, go and get it, because I haven't made money off that. I've given away way more than I've ever sold. But once again, understanding, helping people whose they are, which means you are God's. It's simple. You're a child of God. That's your identity. There's no way you can change that. Whether you believe in it or not, you're a child of God. Your purpose is your identity in action, and that's how you do what God has called you to do. Who is called? What are your strengths? What are you passionate about? Leilani has been a stay-at-home mom ever since we've had kids. If it wasn't for her, our kids would not be who they are. And what our kids are doing now as adults is a direct reflection of how we raised them. So we've been taking land, even though it may not feel like it at a time, especially when we were in debt and we were having some family challenges where, kids are going through their tweens or what. I mean, we have 3 daughters and a son. The tweens could have been a little bit of a challenge, but yeah. In the marketplace, media and government, that's a whole nother story. That's great, Andrew.
Can I say something?
Yes, absolutely. Go for it.
I think if you focus on what you are supposed to do instead of looking at what the church as a whole needs to do, start with yourself.
That's good.
What I'm supposed to do is not what he's supposed to do. And vice versa. So I think to make sure that you're doing what you are called to do, what you are supposed to do, is the first place to start. I think it is important to have people that represent our beliefs and values in the government, in the marketplace, in media. I think that's very important. And if you or someone you know is called to that, then great. We know people that are called to certain areas and they're starting to do those things in those worlds, those genres. So I think just going for what your calling is, but like for me, I'm not supposed to be in government. That's not my that's not my thing. So but somebody else it might be. So
in the marketplace and the media, honestly, it's funny because I find myself even getting caught up at this at times where, I can't stand those bad movies that are coming out, and for me, I just choose not to watch them. I don't like that director out there is pro-abortion and this, and I'm like, you know what, that guy's just spewing nastiness. I'm just not going to watch any of the films he comes out. I don't care what series it is or how much I like them. Now, that's impossible to do that with everything, because if we look at almost every company out there, there's going to be a lot of that we just don't agree with what they support. But when people are blatant and we're supporting it, that's one thing. But my goal is to be literally have billions available to where we're going to combat a lot of that. And it's partnering. I think often when it comes to business, we want to create our own things, but sometimes it's good to just partner with people that are already successful in this area. God TV is incredible. They're starting to take everything by storm. So God TV, I
think supporting the things that you do agree with is a good place to start as well. Even if it's not your field, if you're not going to be an actor, you're not going to be a director, producer, something like that in media, in entertainment, but you find someone who is who lines up with your same beliefs and values, then support them, even if it's $10 or $5 or whatever you can afford. Like, be supportive of that. I think it's important to be known for what you're for more than what you're against.
Yep. It's like that series, The Chosen. The Chosen is an incredible series that's out there. The Holy Spirit moves through every episode, and they're trying to build season 2 right now. And I'm sitting there going, there's been like 25 million downloads. If one person gave $1 out of this 25 million, they would have 3 seasons, the next 2 seasons, 2.5 seasons done. And so a lot of times we sit there and we go,
some of them are from foreign countries where $1 might be their entire days.
I agreed. That is a good point.
Salary,
that's a good point. So. But I mean, there's definitely people here that could afford a lot more to help that series get going. PureFlix, yes, Lynette, that is a great place as well. VidAngel, that's another one that's fairly new, but it's starting to take everything by storm because it edits maybe films you might like, but it gets rid of the profanity, the nudity, anything in there that you just don't want. It will take care of that. And so it's supporting people that are already working really hard in this instead of trying to recreate everything all over again.
John's question.
Yeah, John, how do you hone the focus on your business, and how do you maintain the balance in the tension between all areas of life as an entrepreneur? It's simple. A public success and a private failure is a failure. If you're great at business, but you stink at being a husband or stink at being a father, that is a failure. It doesn't mean it can't be fixed. It doesn't mean it can't be changed. And I'm not judging anything because I don't know what anybody's circumstance is, except for the people that choose to reach out to me. But if I'm going to be a successful leader, the first thing I'm looking at is I want people to see is, what is my relationship with Christ? That's number one. Number two, what is my relationship with my spouse? That's absolutely critical. What's my relationship with my kids? And then what's my relationship with my friends? And then how successful is my business? Because I've seen plenty of very wealthy, very well-to-do, very successful business people that they don't even talk to their kids. They have no relationship with their kids. They've been divorced 3 times. And once again, I'm not saying, hey, if that's happened in the past and you fixed it and you're doing great now, awesome, it's redeemed. I get that. But what I'm saying is when you keep the cycle of I'm putting my success of my business ahead of everything else, that's not a success. So the balance is listening to the Holy Spirit. When is time to pull back? I just had a conversation with someone yesterday. I said, there's a point in your life where your yes propels you forward. Yes, this, yes, that. Your yes propels you forward. But now I'm at a stage at life where my no propels me forward. What I mean, no, I can't do that. I don't have time. No, that's not in the alley God's directed me towards. Because I have people saying, hey, what about this business? What about that business? Nope, that's not good. Nope, that's not something I should partner with. Hey, you run with that, but that's not something I should get involved in. So now my no is far more important than my yes. What am I saying no to? There's only so many hours in a day. So I'd say that's where the balance comes in. Know when it's a time to say yes and know when it's a time to say no, and absolutely listen to your spouse, listen to your kids. I mean, I've had conversations with some of my kids where, Dad, we miss you. We haven't seen you. Hey, you get home and you might be doing this, you might be doing that. You're home, but you're not home. And a lot of times when I'm right in the middle of that and I'm focused, it's hard to stop and disconnect and accept that. But I have to listen. Otherwise, it just doesn't mean anything if you have money, but you don't have relationships. Relationships are first.
I think the way he focuses is, well, for one thing, he's just a very focused person. But I think he thinks about the why. Mm-hmm. So why is he working? Why is he creating different businesses? What's the purpose behind it? What's the goal of it? And balance and tension. Sometimes I have to pull. Sometimes we have to pull on him and be like, come here.
Pull,
stop
gang,
working.
strangle.
When are you coming home? You need to get home. You need to be done for the day.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear what else you need to do. You need to get home and disconnect. Because if I don't, then it's a cycle of sleep, no sleep, and this and that. And it's not healthy for him. Yeah. Again, I have to get bossy for his own good.
And I always take it as that. I know, even if I'm very focused, I know. I think that's why we don't argue. I mean, it's incredibly rare that we actually argue, because if she does something that, in my opinion, it's like, whoa, that's harsh, or man, that hurt a little bit. The first thing I've trained my brain to think is, she loves me. She didn't mean to do that. Or she loves me and she's looking out for what's best in me. And so if that's my first response, instead of, who are you to boss me around kind of thing, if I have that attitude,
not to pick and choose when and how.
That's a good point.
And sometimes Josh and I team up.
Yes, that's true. And Josh is my VP of operations, so they're in it together at times where they're trying to get me away from work, and they do a great job at that. But I'll tell you, if your automatic response is someone's coming at you, then you're going to lash out. But if you realize somebody's trying to pull something out of you good, then you're not going to lash back out. So I think that's the best way to balance life in general, is to be partnered with someone who does that. Once again, there are some spouses that don't get that. That doesn't mean you have an excuse to be a jerk. And I'm saying this in general, John, I'm answering your question, but I'm not saying that's you at all. Because once again, I don't know you from that standpoint. You could be an incredible man, and I'm not saying that. I'm just answering the question. It's so important to know that people aren't against you, but if they are against you, that doesn't give you a right to be a jerk. So let's see. Hey, Dimitri, it's Vanessa's boyfriend. How you doing? Tell him to be nice to me. If I have to tell him to be nice to you, there's a problem there.
Vanessa?
It's yes. And I know you're just joking. I get that. But yeah, I had someone, they actually said that. They go, hey, can you call my boyfriend and tell them to pay attention to me? Like, and they were legit. This was legit. We're having a serious conversation. And I said, if I have to do that and you guys are in the dating stage, that's a massive problem. That's a red flag, because when you get married and you have kids and you're tired and you have to beg for attention now, it's like, whoa, sever that off. Work through it or sever it off, one of the two. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I know, Vanessa, you're just joking. But, if you have to struggle for someone's attention when you're in the courting and the dating stage, or you find things that are like, that doesn't line up with what I believe, or that doesn't line up with what I stand for, take what you have in the dating, because the dating literally is supposed to be, hey, I want to impress her. I want her to like me. And if you're having to struggle with that there, and I'm not saying there's not things you can't work through, but if you're constantly going after things, it gets magnified when you're married. If you have a lazy boyfriend or a lazy girlfriend or whatever it is, or you have someone who just doesn't have passion or drive, I'm telling you, that will be magnified once you get married, because it's all of a sudden it's
usually when you're putting on your best efforts.
Yeah.
And if there's not much effort, then that's telltale signs of what's to come. So,
and I think there's never a stage where
pay attention.
You stop trying to woo your spouse. I mean, we've been married for over 27 years and we've known each other for over 28 years. And I'm telling you, I'll still do the silly, like, I know this is silly, but when like I'm lifting a box and she looks at my arm and she squeezes my arm and ooh, muscles and things, it's like, it's still, I love it. It still is like, wow, okay, she recognizes things. Now, I don't want her squeezing right here, because that's a little more cushioned than it was when we first met, but I'm working on it. But you should always try and woo your spouse. You should always try and do things above and beyond. Never stop dating. One of the things that's been challenged in this quarantine is I can't just take her and I go and we go to a restaurant, we go on a date or a park. We went to the park the other day, which was awesome. Last week, the other day. Yes. We went to a park and it was so good to just hang out with just her. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We got a little food from Diesel. And Diesel. Yes. You saw the pictures. But we're also used to being on about every month and a half, we go on a trip together, and that's been a challenge. Mm-hmm. And you can see it on my face. I'm tired because I work really hard during the week, and getting away for a week or two with just her literally recharges my batteries. When we get away with the kids, it's so great when we have our family vacations. Mm-hmm. It really recharges me. So, Andrew,
good morning, Michelle. Love you.
Michelle, love you. Knowing what you know now, if you had to speak to your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give?
Me or him?
Yeah. So actually
slap yourself in the face. Stop being dumb.
Yeah.
Make better choices.
Yeah. And I would say, being in the 20-year-old type situation, it's kind of the same thing. Even though I was married, it's like there's still things that I put way more focus on that didn't even deserve a second, let alone minutes, hours, days of dwelling on things. We think when we're younger, and I have this saying called real to the puppy. It's real to whatever situation someone's going through. And if you've ever had teenagers, or been a teenager, obviously, you'll know there's things that you get all worked up over, bothered. Even as adults, you get all worked up and bothered over. And you sit there and you go, why did I even let that bother me? Why did I even let that entertain space? So if I was to go back to my 20s, I'd be more deliberate in what I allowed to entertain my thoughts. And that's definitely, because it may seem huge right there, but the reality in the big scheme of life, it's not. Mm-hmm. If your kid ends up coloring on a wall and you lose your stinking mind, really, why? I mean, I get totally, now this is from someone who has lost their mind because their kid did something, but in the big scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal. Correct it. Right. If it's not supposed to happen, say, hey, you don't do that, and make sure it doesn't happen again. But it doesn't change your world because somebody made a mistake somewhere along the way. So that's what I would say. Just don't make a big deal out of little things. I'd actually say, okay, so balance that. Don't make a big deal out of little things that are in the negative, but make a big deal out of little things. Like Leilani, even if I pull over and I stop and I pick a flower for her, it's a big deal to her. That's a little thing. Or if I come home and Leilani has dinner ready, or she's went out of her way to do something nice for me, it may seem little, but it's a big deal. And often if you're a husband, and we are actually the biggest instigators, I'd say, this is where the spouse does this, and this to like show love, and you're just, you don't pay attention to it. Then all of a sudden, one day you wake up and you find all these little things aren't being done anymore, and you wonder why. It's because you were not paying attention. And so don't make a big deal out of little things that aren't a big deal, but make a big deal out of little things that are. And it's usually the things out of love. If it's a little thing, make a big deal out of it. How about wall paint all over your car, Mariah? Oh, is that
her Mariah?
Her Mariah. Well,
how old was she when she did that?
Yeah.
Was it intentional? Because those are the things that you might want to investigate. If she was old enough to know better and she did something intentional to your car with wall paint, then there's definitely there's a motivation there for some reason. Yeah, 10 years old, she should know better. It's definitely a motivation there behind, in my opinion, not even knowing her, that she's wanting attention somehow. She's wanting, maybe she only gets negative attention. I don't know, or more attention for negative things. Maybe she's angry about something. I think you need to have a conversation about that.
Yeah, because I remember I had a nephew, and my nephew would keep doing things that were bad. I mean, purposely messing up. And he was probably 8 or 9 years old. And I remember this issue where basically my nephew would mess up. Not 8 or 9 years old, 4 or 5 years old. And my nephew would mess up. So my sister would spank him and then give him a hug. But I didn't know many hugs from the time where and she was new to being a mom. And once again, this is a situation that everybody goes through. Raising kids is hard, especially when you don't know how to do it. And nobody truly knows how. There's time where we get better and better, but to say, hey, what's the perfect way to raise a kid? We couldn't even say that now. Every personality is different. But I watched my nephew do this thing wrong, and I realized that they were doing something wrong because they wanted the hug. And so it's interesting because most of the time, this isn't all the time, a kid will act out in a negative way when they know it's wrong. Generally, they're just screaming for attention. That's generally. And once again, that's not, there are cases where they're just being a challenge and they know what's wrong and they just choose to be that way. I mean, I see adults do that all the time. So I would really have a heart to heart. And like we talked about last week, Lonnie is just a master at getting the heart of the children. Basically, I want my kids to know I love them and I have what's best for them. I do too, but she's definitely more compassionate in that way, has a better way of communicating it. I think I'd put it that way. So I'll answer a question from last week. Somebody asked me about the weapons behind me. And actually, the weapons pretty much everywhere. You can see, I'll try and do this. Let's see, we have everywhere there's weapons. And it's just literally because I love collecting them. It started back we went on a missions trip. I went on a missions trip to Kenya. And I saw these Maasai warriors out on the beach and they were selling some of their weapons and I started buying them and it hasn't stopped since. wherever we go, whatever country we go to, I'm trying to find out what weapons are available, which I always find kind of humorous when you go to some countries and you're like, hey, where can I find some weapons? And they're like, what? I remember we were in Liberia one time and I asked where there's weapons. And then we all found this place where there were machetes. So a lot of us bought them. And the first thing they said is America at war? I'm like, no, we progressed quite a ways from the machete. So, but yeah, I love collecting weapons from all over the world. I love Damascus steel. I love the meaning behind it. So just layered, forged, pounded, it holds an edge, and it kind of reflects a lot of life. I think over the years, being married and going through life, whether Ariel having her brain aneurysm, to being in credit card debt, to medical issues, from the family in general. I mean, Leilani right now has had a knee issue that has been pretty much nonstop for about a year, if not longer. Yeah, a couple years. I've had some medical issues that just keep going on. And it's like, you know what? Damascus steel basically gets pounded and then folded and then pounded and folded and pounded and folded. And it's putting heat. And what it does is actually through that process, it creates a much tougher, much stronger metal, which means it holds the edge. And a lot of times life pounds us and folds us, pounds and folds. We feel heat, but we're able to hold an edge to help other people get through life, help other people go through circumstance. And we're able to maintain our edge when new trials come about and new challenges. We've been pounded and molded. Now, a lot of that actually has been a dumb mistake I made. I'm like, Lord, why am I going through this? Well, because you did something dumb, And so there's a lot of times I make mistakes and I whine about it. And then I realize, oh, I'm the one that actually caused that. So don't sit there and say, well, the Lord's molding me and forging me and he's creating this, allowing this. It's like, no, a lot of times we make our own stupid mistakes. So, but the point is what did we learn through that process? And so I think if that's one thing we always want to leave with you and let you know is we love everybody here. We know that life can be hard. There's no such thing as a perfect life. There's no such thing as trials and tribulations not happening. There's no such thing. Everything requires work. But you pick someone in your life that has a relationship you like or a model. I see that what's a relationship goals or couples goals. Mm-hmm. I see that lately. And it's like, pick what you really, not the outside Instagram look. Who's someone that's went through some trials that you can say, hey, I'd love to be that. That's my dream life. Then be mentored, modeled, follow whoever it is. There's plenty of them out there. John and Lisa Bevere are incredible. Addison and Juliana Bevere, they're incredible. They're a younger couple. They have 4 kids. Mm-hmm. They have 4 kids, and Lisa and John had 4 kids, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's someone later in stage of life, someone earlier in life. They're incredible. They maintained it in a family. And if you ever listen to John and Lisa Bevere's story, they had a rough beginning and a start. I mean, I remember one where she's throwing plates at John.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
they've talked about this a lot.
They do. They talk about it. And so you learn what people go through, but find people. Bill Johnson is one of my favorites. Chris Valentin is one of my favorites. Greg and Gretchen DeVries in general. They have 12 kids and they have 12 amazing kids. They're going to have like 100,000 grandkids. It's like, I'm envious of that. But every one of their kids are incredible.
Parenting books, look up Seth Dahl. He and his wife Lauren have parenting books for especially people with little ones.
Yeah.
Great resource there.
Absolutely. A business or wealth thought process. Chris Valentin has a book called Poverty, Riches, and Wealth. That's a book that, once again, it's a lot similar belief thought process to me. Bill Johnson's When Heaven Invades Earth. That's an incredible. Jensen Franklin, I'm actually have the summary reading list is Acres of Diamonds. That's supposed to be another great book that I have on my list. Daniel Caligula, is that how that's pronounced? Reinhard Bunke's. Yeah, he has a book called Slaying Dragons. That I'm halfway through that. Once again, it's really just incredible. It continually seek knowledge. There's so much out there. We have the internet, which can be a great thing and a bad thing. Anybody else that you listen to Christine Kane quite a bit as well.
Kane is fantastic. So is Lisa Harper, Priscilla Schreier.
Yeah.
all those ladies are great.
Yeah.
Books, Instagram,
Yeah.
podcasts.
So continue to soak in that, because what you get in you is what comes out of you.
Charlotte Gamble. Sorry.
Who?
Charlotte Gamble.
Charlotte Gamble. Yeah. So yeah, it's what you get in you is what will come out of you. If you're constantly feeding yourself with junk and negativity, that's what's coming out of you. If you're constantly seeking wisdom, love, revelation. Also, I heard there's this really book out there called a good book out there called the Bible. I happen to know the author, and the great thing about the Bible is it's one of the few books, if the only book, where the author actually gets to communicate with you all the time while you're reading it. So just ask the Holy Spirit to reveal to you what's being said. So I appreciate everybody taking the time out for this. We love you. We appreciate the time you spent. And of course, you guys need anything, just comment, like, reach out, email, stalk. No, just, okay. We love you guys. Bye-bye.